let's go back to our session of today, which is breathing through the storm. So as I said, we're going to have two parts. So the first part will be led by a friend of ours, a crazy adventurer named Sandra Marichal. So I leave the stage to you, Sandra, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi, thank you, Paula. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. Hi, everybody. Hold on, it's happening. Can you see my screen? Just checking with Paula. Nod if you see my screen. Yes, awesome, perfect. All right, cool. Well, welcome everyone. I'm just gonna, here you go, just check, yeah, perfect. So as Paula said, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about breathing through the storm. And so I thought I would start with showing you the boat. So here's the boat I've lived on for the last 7 months. For the last 6 months, we sailed halfway around the world. That boat is 70 foot long, that's 23 meters. The mast is about a 10-story building, and the head sail, which you see on the right side, are combined about the size of a small tennis court. So it looks like a big boat, but it's not that big once you're sailing around the world. We are actually part of the Clipper race around the world. So every 2 years, that race starts out of London, finishes in London, takes about 11 months, and we have a fleet of 11 boats with about a same size of crew member and composition of crew members, and we're about 20 to 24 people on board. So that's the fleet as we left, I think it was Gosport to deliver to London. This is the itinerary that we started and are hoping to finish, and I will come to what happened to us. So as you see, London, went to Portugal, crossed the equator through the Atlantic Ocean, went to Uruguay, then crossed the Atlantic a second time, went to Cape Town, then crossed the Southern Ocean to Australia, around Australia, and all the way to Subic Bay. And that's where we stopped. And I am now in London. I will tell you why. So before we start, and the whole purpose of today's session is really to think about, or to share some of the stories I've had of living on a boat and what it actually means for all of us who are in self-isolation, confinement, or quarantine, whatever you call it. And I want to clarify something about boat life, because I've heard so many stories about what people think I've been doing the last 7 months. And that is pretty much our crew. And on a boat, we are stuck on a small living areas, tiny, tiny conditions. That's some of our crew during a meeting here, all in our gear. That is down below. We call it downstairs, is called down below. And that's when we're having lunch. So that's half of the crew. And you can see there's not enough space for everybody to sit on the sofas. And when everybody's on deck, as an example here, we're having a meeting at lunchtime, it gets really, really crowded. So a boat in the middle of the ocean is confinement. I've been living in confinement. So right now, today, I'm actually enjoying myself because there's multiple rooms, and there's a couple of things as well, including, of course, Instagram, internet, movies, Netflix, and a bit of champagne helps from time to time. Now, talking about champagne, this is what people think I've been doing. Nope, that is absolutely not what happened to us in the last 7 months. We have not been champagne sailing. Let me introduce you and give you a tour of the boat. This, ladies and gentlemen, is down below. That's the main space. I'm not going to call it a room, it's a space. It's your entrance, your kitchen, storeroom, living room, TV room, and office. Then I would like to walk you through to the kitchen. So that's your cooker, and that's your dishwasher. That's the hands of a human being here, and that's a pile of dirty dish that happens to us twice at every meal, 3 times a day. That is your wardrobe for a year. And ladies, this is supposed to be 20 kgs, sorry. I cheat a little bit, I had 25 kgs. But that's pretty much what you're gonna be wearing for an entire year, and it fits into a bag-ish. That is the toilet. So a lot of people have been asking, what does the toilet look like? That is it, it's just a bowl, you sit on it, and the door is a zip fabric. And flushing is a manual flush, so you pump. My beauty rituals in my shower, that's what it looks like. Here you go. So that's here in the Atlantic, in the doldrums, when the boat is fairly flat and we're having a good time. We finally can pour a bucket of seawater onto ourselves, fully dressed in our life jackets. That is the bedroom. As you can see, there's a lot of privacy. And the bed looks like this. On the left side, that's a picture taken from where I sleep, then kind of a version on top. And that's my mate here, Danny Lee, trying to get out of his bunk when the boat is tipped over. And that is your neighbors, your night out, the cinema, internet, and the cloud. Can also count for Instagram. That is an interesting picture. And the reason why I'm showing you all of this is because a lot of people think that when we go sailing, we're very free. We're outside, we're in the wind, and it's true, we enjoy that a lot. But the reality is that confinement, that restricted space, the lack of privacy, the lack of hygiene, the no shower, and that bit, which is just seeing the horizon all around you, creates a lot of anxiety. Actually, a few people, and it happens to quite a few people, the first time that we lose sight of land creates that weird feeling where you feel like you belong to the planet, but at the same time you belong nowhere. And there's no one here to rescue you, and the closest help you can get is from the other clipper boats in the fleet. That's also why most of the time we will see that we kind of follow each other on a specific track across the ocean. So that creates a lot of stress in itself, and that's just living. That's just day in and day out. Now, I want to add something else, which is most of the time, the oceans are not really friendly. And that, I invite you to tilt your head like I do. So if you tilt your head, I think I can see you, Paula. Try to tilt your head, everybody. This is life at an angle. Here you go. So that's about 33 degrees angle. And so when we're going upwind, meaning the wind is coming in front of us, that is the angle at which the boat is heeling over constantly. And now it's moving up and down and on the side. As you can see here on all of these pictures, just to give you a little bit of an example of how it feels like. Then you add to this the wind, the rain, the waves, and that's inside. So here my crewmate Angie is eating, she's having her lunch. Can you see the red arrow? That's called gravity, thank you Newton. And so what you see that is the way on the way down, and that's the line. And if I tilt it over, that's what the horizontal view would look like. And I want to show you another example. That is the accommodation area. So on both sides of that picture, you see blue fabrics. These are the fabrics that prevents us from falling out of our bunk. So there's 2 bunk on the right side and 2 bunk on the left side. You see something black in the middle of the corridor, held by a sail tie, a line. This is a puking bucket. So there are people who are feeling, and most of us at the beginning of every race will feel quite seasick. It's a normal process we all go through. And so you would be stuck in your bunk and you'd be literally using that bucket, puke in it and leave it there. And as good crewmates who would then, the ones who are feeling okay, would then take the bucket, empty it out of the sea and come back and bring it back to our mates and make sure they're hydrated and they're sleeping and they're fed. So now that you're starting to have a feel about how tough life is on a racing yacht, let me share with you a couple of the things that we've been through. One, we do not stop sailing. That means that we also sail at night, and that can be a little bit stressful as well for people who've never sailed before. It sounds really poetic, but when you've got a big sea, a lot of waves, and you don't see at all where you're going, then it gets really pretty scary. And we end up learning to sail with the moon and the stars, but when you don't have that, it gets really scary. So this is a picture of dawn, but this is really what it feels like when you're on the boat. That is actually how you engage. And so you're not allowed to switch any white light on as you would just move around, because it would break your night vision. So that's the vision at which and the light that we use during our nighttime. So in the dark, the funny bit is that everything has the same color, and I encourage you to check out my Instagram feed to see how I almost lost it and cried because I couldn't find my dry socks in the dark. That was an epic moment. In tough conditions, we all react in a very strange way, just like now. And we literally need to find ways within ourselves and also to get help from others to compose ourselves and respond in a kind of composed way. The good news about night sailing is that the sunshine always goes back, right? The sun rises, and that's what our days are rhythm by. So it's the sunrise, the sunset, and the lunch meeting in the middle. So there's one thing that on these boats happens sometimes, and that's broaching. So broaching is when the boat goes, you are downwind and the boat goes on its side, and you lose a bit of control through your rudders, and so you're not able to keep the boat straight. So you have to depower the main. I'm going to try to show you a video to show you exactly what it looks like. These are the big waves that we were facing, and that was in the Bay of Biscay between France and Spain as we left London. And this is the broach. A bit of a broach. So as you can see, the boom that's holding the main is touching the water, so we are a bit on our side, but that was an easy one. We didn't film when it was pretty bad because we were holding tight. And I don't know if you can see, there's two helms, two wheels, and these are our first mate and our skipper. And they both helming at the same time to relieve pressure on from, here we go, now we're back flat again, to relieve pressure on the rudders and the helming cages. And our skipper has just asked everybody to go at the back of the boat because we were trying to put our weight, so it's about, all of us, all our crew members, is 1.5 tons of people at the back to get the rudder back in the water so we can get the control back. So when these things happen, I'll show you, that was the mood that was happening. So we were a bit scared, but it was fairly okay. So we all tethered to the boat. So if you look carefully in the picture, we're all wearing a life jackets, and there's a tether, so a cord that's attached as life jackets to the boat. And during this moment, the first thing that went through my mind was, I am now attached to the boat. If the boat goes sideways or, you know, upside down, I'm under the water. Should I unclip from the boat or should I stay attached to the boat? If I stay attached to the boat and my life jacket blows, then I'm stuck under the boat with the life jacket pushing me against it and I drown. If I'm attached and then the boat goes back up, which it's meant to do anyway on its own, then I'm lost at sea and they have to fish me out. I'm a man or woman overboard. So these are the sorts of thoughts that happen right there. So I'm smiling, but really inside, we're all freaking out completely. And one of the things that kind of saved me or calmed me down was this idea of like breathing. I'm like, okay, I'm safe, it's strong. You know, also having a bit of a helicopter view. So thinking it's a strong boat, it's a safe place, and just look inside and be more composed about what was the situation going on. And also what you'll see on the video here is we were all trying to have fun. So we all took that with, you know, an acknowledgement that, you know, the shit hit the fan pretty much. And we were all in this together, but we all have to find a way to support each other. And one of our crewmates started telling stories about, she's a doctor, about all the weird patients that she started having in her life. And people started to like release and be happy and laughing. That's why you see here on this picture. Now, the storms. It's normal as we go through the oceans to find a couple of storms. And actually, as sailors, we love that. In normal vocabulary, if you're sailing, you'd say, oh, it's a difficult day. It actually means there's no wind. And if it's a spicy, fun day, that means there's a lot of wind. Now, this is one of the instruments that we use to track the wind speed. As you can see here, it was a spike of 86 knots. That's about 160 kilometers per hour. So imagine being on the boat and you're attached to it. Of course, you're wearing your tether and your life jacket, but there's no track, you're driving this. You've got to be confident in your boat and what's going on. Now, you must remember from last year, end of last year, there was a new hurricane that kind of took birth and was going towards Europe. It was Hurricane Lorenzo. And that's exactly when we were actually in the middle of the Atlantic. So we saw the birth of it. That's what the birth of the hurricane looked like. So if you see on this picture that red patch, that's the birth of it. And then the little boat on the right side, the little image of a red boat is us. As sailors, we use hurricane and big weather system, and we follow them to get some speed. So that's what we did here. And so a way to prepare for that and to compose yourself and to manage the situation is to prepare your trysails. That's the storm sail, and get ready for the worst so that if anything happened, we'll be fine. And everything ended up being fine. No one got injured, but it was a bit scary. Now, there's a common kind of denial among sailors that if there's a storm and electrical kind of, as you can see on the picture, we won't get fried. The reality is I think we will get fried, but we just don't like to think about it. So maybe denial is a good thing sometimes. Here you go. These are some pictures of the electrical storm at night. And lastly, what I want to show you is a storm that we faced in the southern Atlantic between Uruguay and Cape Town. And as you can see here, that storm was a lot bigger. We actually went through 3 big weather system, and that's one of them. Now, if you look at that picture, that's exactly the feeling that you have. You're on a boat, you're going downwind. Imagine you're on a roller coaster, you're not wearing any security or belt, and you have no tracks. That's what it feels like to be on a boat through a storm. So here it's our skipper helming. He's driving the boat, and you can see like the mainsail is the smallest possible, and the head sail is just a staysail. So it's the minimum. We've got the minimum possible sails right there, just to make sure that we don't push the boat too hard and we stay safe. So it's pretty crazy dangerous conditions. Everybody's wearing a dry suit, and it's crazy cold as well. And it's a little wet. A lot of the time we get absolutely drenched, and there's no place to dry inside the boat either. But the good news, as I mentioned earlier, just like with night sailing, the sun comes back and the storm passes away, and we all go through it properly. Now, there's something worse than having a storm and having a lot of wind when you're on the boat, is having no wind. And actually, from a mental perspective, it's the worst. When the sea is so calm and so quiet, it's like an oil painting, and we can't do anything about it. So we have an engine on board, but we're not allowed to use it. It's a race. And you can see people get bored, and people become negative, and negativity spread really, really, really quickly on a closed space. So I encourage you to watch out, especially now that you're in self-isolation. If you start having negative thoughts, to like get away and go somewhere else and find a way to escape a little bit. And it gets really hot as well. We have a logbook, which I really liked. I took a few pictures, and that's an example of somebody writing here, "Please send wind, hurry." And that's a legal document. So it was kind of funny that we put some comments in there that, the crew were desperate to get some wind. Of course, sometimes the boat breaks as well, which is another reason why this race is terrible and sometimes a little bit scary, but we figure it out. So that's a spinnaker sail, it's at the head. And that's an example of another boat of a spinnaker that torn apart. And then we spent 3 days in a row here with my crewmate, Holly Williams, stitching the sail back up, and a whole night with the crew, with the sewing machine, while the boat is sailing, to try to repair that sail so we can go faster. The body breaks too, and I'm pretty good at this. I'd say it's not something I'm proud of, but I get hurt quite a bit. In the middle picture, I impaled my finger, break my another finger, and I think I want to show you something. It's a bit of graphic, so if you've got kids around, just ask them to close their eyes on the next picture. So this little bit here on the slide that you can see in the picture is what broke my hand, and got stitched immediately right away by our professional kind of surgeon on board, Holly Williams. So that's my face on the right side here. And I'm going to show you here a quick picture here. That's the stitches. Thank you for the onboard surgery, and the hand is healing properly. Now, this is the face I was making. I was 20 days down below in the cockpit. I'm not able to go back on deck because, of course, my hand was, pretty badly injured and open. But the reality is, when I was going back to my bunk, this is my face. So, we play heroes and we try to be strong, but the reality is we all have our down moment, and it's really important to acknowledge them. And on the boat, I think something that I've learned is to be very vulnerable. So one is breathing, one is sharing, but also being okay with not being okay. And sharing it with other people so they can lift you up. Got the stitches removed. I'm not really proud of that moment. And then 3 weeks later, I'm back on deck here with my friend SR. She's a real badass, and she's wearing those pants, which I love and give me a lot of motivation. It says, "No balls needed, just guts and glory." Go SR. Got to Australia, and then another problem here. Went to the hospital. Turns out my hand was actually broken. We didn't know the hand was broken. I was just back on using it on deck, and I had to skip to my last leg from one coast to the other of Australia. So I couldn't sail that part. Joined the team back here from Australia, and we all sailed then all the way to Subic Bay. And then we got stuck here, just like you guys, for the same reason. COVID-19 struck. We were not allowed to cross the Pacific Ocean. We were not allowed to leave the Philippines for 3 days. We were stuck on the pontoon. And as you can see on those pictures, we were trying to get out, but we couldn't. We were put on detention and quarantine. Finally, they let us out. We got convoyed to the airport and evicted from the country, I think, technically speaking. And here we all stuck with you guys in self-isolation, which is a much more luxurious space. And this is the last picture of the boat, which is now berthed in the Philippines. And we're hoping to go back to it at some point to finish that around the world. What I want to finish with is, I know I'm conscious I've got 2 minutes left. is how do we cope, manage, or even thrive in that time of, those storms, literally and figuratively speaking. And one thing that we really want to focus on is breathing. And I think for me, it was an important moment when you're on deck or you're getting stressed or you start yelling, to just take a big breath and, inhale in and exhale. And that really helps calm you down and recenter you in your perfect space. Doing yoga was also something that we got used to on the boat. People loved it and kept asking for it. One girl managed to take a sneaky picture of me doing stretching in my bunk. So if I can do stretching in my bunk on a boat heeling over, you guys have no excuse for not doing it in your own bed on a flat place, an apartment that is not moving. Cooking is really important, helps cheer people up. Here we made pizza after 30 days at sea for one of our crewmate, Dan, and a pavlova. Yeah, we whisked the eggs ourselves without any machine. We celebrated birthdays. We celebrated crossing the equator with like Neptune showing up. And then, of course, the pleasure of sailing. I think one thing that we keep forgetting in this self-isolation time is also to think about the things that you've always wanted to do, had never had time to do and want to do it now. Seeing the wildlife, having some really good contemplation time with your friends, sitting down with your family, play cards, use your imagination to just stand still and breathe together and just be present. And of course, arriving, being, sharing joy. So when this is all over, we all go for good drinks and a big party like we did on the boat. So that was a bit of a story of what happened. It's really hard to summarize 6 months at sea. But if you want to know more, I just wrote an article for Green is the New Black. So how to stay sane in this kind of self-isolation time. Tons of, guidance and tips in there. Follow me at Sandra Marichal Official on Facebook and on Instagram, sharing quite a few funny videos and, and stories from what happened in the last 6 months and for more to come. And also stay tuned because we're writing a children's book. Proceeds of that book will then go to UNICEF to support our boat. So thank you very much, everybody, for that. And over back to you, Paula.
Thank you so much, Sandra. You know how I'm always following your path. You went to Antarctica and then the year or 2 years after we went to the Arctic, but I'm not sure about this one. It's crazy, man. Oh my God. You look amazing. So I didn't say at the beginning, but please guys, if you have any questions for Sandra, can you just put them into the comments, and we're gonna take some time at the end to just try to reply to them, or maybe Sandra will have time to just write you something under the comments. But I just have one really quick question. If we wanted to do that, what kind of process would I have to go through?
Yeah, this is a good question. So the Clipper race is a race that you participate in by, you pay a fee, so you pay your berth fee. So that's fairly straightforward. But what I would encourage everybody to think about is as you get into that, make sure you've got enough time to prepare. The physical preparation is really important. A sail, weight a couple of 100 kilograms. So it's really hard physically. Prepare yourself mentally. Before I left, I had coaching about how to engage in stressful situation. Did a lot of meditation and yoga to get ready, and also go through the training. If you've got any question, go on the Clipper Round the World website, and you can actually ask for documentation, and then or just write to me directly, and I'm happy to answer a lot of questions that you may have.
Cool. Thank you very much, Sandra. But yes, again, please, guys, if you have any questions, put them in a comment for Sandra and we'll try to reply.